There is a dark side to official history that nobody in the academic establishment wants to talk about. In 1929, a Turkish naval officer named Piri Reis was sorting through dusty documents in the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul when he found something that should be impossible: a map, drawn in 1513. And on that map, clearly, accurately, undeniably, was the coastline of Antarctica. Not a rough guess, not a vague blob. The actual subglacial coastline that we didn't confirm with modern sonar equipment until 1949. Think about what that means. Whoever drew this map knew the shape of a continent buried under a mile of ice. A continent that the entire Western world wouldn't officially discover for another 300 years. And here's the part that will keep you up tonight. Piri Reis himself admitted he didn't draw it from scratch. He said he copied it from maps that were far, far older. So who made the original? And what happened to the civilization that made it? Now here is the exact moment where every person who encounters this map faces a choice. And most people don't even realize they're making it. You just stumbled onto one of the most genuinely disturbing anomalies in recorded history. A document exists, physically in a museum, verified by cartographers, confirmed by U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Harold Z. Ohlmeyer in a 1960 declassified letter that shows geographical knowledge nobody was supposed to have. So you have two options in front of you right now. You can take the path that the majority of people take, which is the comfortable one, or you can take the path that leads to the real answer, the one that fundamentally changes how you understand human civilization. I want to be clear. These are not equal paths. One of them ends with you knowing less than you did 5 minutes ago. The other one ends with you understanding something that most people on this planet. Path A is the path of the comfortable explanation. And honestly, it's tempting. It goes like this. The Piri Reis map is just a coincidence. Ancient cartographers were guessing. They drew a southern landmass because they assumed one had to exist for the world to be balanced. A philosophical concept called terra australis incognita. The resemblance to Antarctica is approximate at best, and scholars have been misreading it for decades. This is the explanation you will find in most mainstream academic journals. It's the one that gets taught in universities. It is, without question, the safe answer. And here's why so many people run straight to it. It requires nothing from you. It doesn't ask you to question anything. It doesn't disturb the timeline. It lets you go back to your day completely undisturbed. The civilization that supposedly drew the original source maps, it doesn't have to exist. The impossible knowledge doesn't have to be explained. You just label it coincidence, close the book, and move on. Most people choose this path. And I understand why. But here is exactly where Path A falls apart. And it falls apart hard. In 1960, the U.S. Air Force's 8th Reconnaissance Technical Squadron at Westover Air Force Base conducted a formal cartographic analysis of the Piri Reis map. They compared it against modern seismic survey data of Antarctica's actual subglacial coastline, the real coast, underneath all the ice. Their conclusion, signed by Lieutenant Colonel Ohlmeyer, stated directly, "The geographical detail shown is remarkably close to the results of the 1949 Swedish-British Antarctic expedition. This wasn't a blogger. This wasn't a conspiracy theorist. This was the United States Air Force in a declassified government document saying the accuracy is real." And then there's the projection problem. The Piri Reis map uses an incredibly sophisticated azimuthal equidistant projection centered on Cairo. A projection so mathematically advanced that historians had no explanation for how a 16th century Ottoman cartographer could have produced it. Path A asks you to call all of this coincidence. And the more you look at the evidence, the harder that word is to say with a straight face. Path B is harder. Path B demands something from you. It asks you to sit with a genuinely uncomfortable truth, that somewhere in the deep past there was a civilization, or possibly multiple civilizations, with a level of geographical and mathematical sophistication that we have not given them credit for. Charles Hapgood, a professor of history and anthropology at Keene State College in New Hampshire, spent years collecting and analyzing ancient maps with anomalies just like this one. The Oronteus Finaeus map of 1531 showing Antarctica with mountain ranges. The Haji Ahmed map of 1559 showing the Bering land bridge between Alaska and Siberia, a land bridge that was submerged roughly 10,000 years ago. The Boacha map of 1737 showing Antarctica divided into two separate landmasses, which wasn't scientifically confirmed until 1958. Hapgood's conclusion was methodical and documented. These maps were copied from source documents made by an ancient maritime civilization with advanced knowledge of the globe, a civilization that navigated and surveyed the entire Earth, possibly before the last ice age. Albert Einstein, in a 1953 letter, personally endorsed Hapgood's research as, quote, of great interest and importance. Path B leads somewhere that is equal parts terrifying and extraordinary. If Hapgood is right, and the cartographic evidence is extraordinarily difficult to dismiss, then we are missing an enormous chapter of human history. Not a small gap, not a footnote. An entire civilization, possibly spanning thousands of years, that surveyed the globe, understood spherical geometry, possessed navigation technology we couldn't replicate until the modern age, and then vanished. Gone so completely that all we have left are faint echoes in maps that later civilizations copied without even understanding what they were copying. Think about Piri Reis again. He was an educated, accomplished Ottoman admiral. He was not a fool. And even he had no idea what the source of his information was. He just knew the maps existed. He copied them. And then time buried them in a palace archive for 416 years. This path leads you to a question that has no comfortable answer. How many other things do we not know? How many other maps, texts, artifacts, and structures are sitting right in front of us, waiting for someone to ask the question that most people are too comfortable to ask? Because here is what I know for certain. The history you were taught was incomplete. And incomplete history is not the same as false history. It just means the story isn't finished yet. So how do you actually decide which path to take? I want to give you an honest answer instead of the dramatic one. You don't have to choose one completely. The serious researcher, the person who walks away from this video genuinely smarter than when they sat down, holds both possibilities simultaneously. You look at Path A and you ask, is the mainstream explanation actually sufficient? Does coincidence fully explain the azimuthal projection? Does guessing explain the subglacial accuracy that took 20th century sonar technology to confirm? And when the answer keeps coming back as no, you turn to Path B and you ask, what is the minimum conclusion the evidence actually supports? The minimum conclusion is this. Ancient cartographers had access to source maps depicting geographical knowledge that predates all known civilizations. Where those maps came from is still an open question, and open questions are not weaknesses, they are invitations. The people who changed our understanding of history were never the ones who accepted the comfortable answer. They were the ones who kept staring at the anomaly long after everyone else had looked away. If this has lit something up in you, if you feel that specific sensation of your worldview quietly expanding, here is exactly where to go next. The single most thorough academic investigation of these cartographic anomalies was done by Charles Hapgood himself in his landmark work, Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings, published in 1966. This is not a pop history book. This is a methodical, source-cited academic analysis of over a dozen ancient maps that collectively suggest a sophisticated pre-Ice Age maritime civilization. Hapgood reproduces the original documents, walks through the mathematical analysis, and presents the cartographic evidence in a way that is genuinely difficult to dismiss. Right now, you can find it on Audible, and if you are the kind of person who has been absorbing this video while commuting, working out, or doing anything else with your hands, this is exactly the format for you. Audible lets you go deep on this topic without having to stop what you are doing. Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings by Charles Hapgood. The link is in the description. And once you read it, you will never look at a world map the same way again. Because you will know what most people don't, that the map on your wall might be younger than the knowledge it contains. The Piri Reis map is sitting in the Topkapi Palace Museum in Istanbul right now. It is real. The U.S. Air Force letter is declassified and publicly accessible. The mathematical analysis of the projection is documented. These are not myths. These are not rumors. These are physical artifacts and formal documents waiting for anyone curious enough to look. And that is what this channel is about. Not giving you the comfortable version of history, but the complete version. The version with the pieces that got left out. the version where the anomalies get